South Africa has launched a crackdown on small convenience stores after the death of more than 20 children from suspected food poisoning in October. The shops, known locally as spazas, are at the center of a heated dispute over food safety and immigration. While authorities investigate, human rights groups warn the campaign may be fueled by xenophobia, as DW's Dianne reports from Johannesburg.
A convenient place to buy essential items or a death trap for children? That's a question plaguing South African communities where shops like these are a convenient source of food and other household products. Called spazas, until recently they operated with little oversight or health inspection. But then a group of immigrant shop owners were accused of being responsible for the deaths of several children. This was the trigger for anti-foreigner vigilante groups who even forced some shops to close. Abera Joore from Ethiopia owns one of them. The experience left him scarred and without a living.
They come and they break the shop, they loot and they vandalize, and then even they burn like 2-3 cars, they beat our brothers, even they burned some shop. We save some of our brothers by a lot of struggle from the shop when they try to burn in the shop.
Even though none of the affected children were from his neighborhood, Joore was forced to shut up shop.
Those people, they are acting like we are the animal. They are the human being. That's the problem is happening to us.
The people behind the attacks say they're acting to protect the community at large, but many local residents depend on the shops and want them to stay.
I don't have an issue with the Spaza shops. If the shops they get being maintained, they send the food safety to be checked every month, maybe every month or after 6 months. They must visit the stores and check the store that they are selling the good product.
But the controversy over the convenience stores isn't just about contaminated food and the alleged poisonings. It's also about money and who's earning it. South Africa's spaza shop economy is estimated to be worth 10 billion euro. Some local business and community groups argue that too much of that economy rests in the hands of immigrants. And they say that all these shops should either be shut down or transferred to the hands of locals. These business owners in the Vaal area, south of Johannesburg, have formed a group and call themselves the Vaal Keepers. They've been leading calls for immigrant-owned spaza shops to close, and they want the government to change the regulations so that only South Africans can own such stores.
We don't want to compete with these people because, one, they're doing things illegally in our country. Number two, they're not even paying tax.
The authorities are already clamping down. As well as ordering all the spazas to get registered, South Africa's government has responded to the anger surrounding immigrant-owned shops by increasing on-site inspections. But food inspectors aren't going there alone. They're accompanied by immigration officials on the lookout for violations.
I am charging you.
Human rights activist Dale McKinley says the government clampdown is more about garnering votes.
Again, it's a part of a deployment of a particular politics. I think we've seen it with Trump, we've seen it in the United States, we've seen it all across Europe, which is the peddling of deliberately peddling and conscious peddling of misinformation in order to stoke political tension, in order to get votes, in order to get support for an anti-immigration agenda.
As the deadline approaches for the spaza shops to register with the authorities, anti-immigrant sentiment here shows little sign of fading. But for Abera Joore and many other immigrant shop owners, South Africa is home.
Us, we don't have any way to go.
He believes local communities, the government and shop owners will need to work together to ensure children's lives are protected and the rights of immigrants too.
Let's speak to Vusi Vokwana, the founder and director at Cassie Catalysts, which empowers communities and local businesses in townships. And Vusi joins us from Cape Town. Good to have you with us on the program. First, could you give us a picture of the role of the Spaza shops in South African economy and society?
Thank you for having me. Spaza shops are critical to the communities, in which they operate. But first, I need to give you a definition quickly of what those are. Spaza shops operate in townships, but are specifically tuck shops or convenience stores that are set up in residential homes. So makeshift Wendy houses or in garages at people's residences, not in a commercial zoned area. And so what they've been able to provide is access to a few sort of basket of goods that people can get, and they normally open for longer hours than your big retailers that operate in townships.
Right. Now we're having this scenario of the crackdown, the government crackdown, which they say is about food safety. Some critics are talking about xenophobia. From your perspective, what is the truth?
Well, I think it's been unfairly convenient for government to show us what the GNU is about and who really is the power broker in that space. So we're getting to see government pander to big business because what they're managing to do sort of behind the smoke screen of health regulations is to flush out all of the issues that have been big challenges for them. So it's a smorgasbord of transgressions, if you will, where they're able to bring in the food safety as one element, but then also immigration. They can look at who's illegal, and they can literally formalize a sector that has been able to operate informally for decades in South Africa and unchecked.
Help us understand the tension between the local and the foreign shop owners, because there seems to be this divide, and that's also where these complaints of xenophobia are coming from.
We live in a country where we have 150,000 Spaza shops nationally, right? Out of that 150,000, 90% are owned and operated by foreign nationals from, the African continent. And only 10% are really run by locals. And so obviously there's going to be a lot of tension between the locals who are, one, so few, who don't have access to capital that's necessary for them to compete against the big retailers and against the foreign-run Spaza shops. The foreign Spazas seem to be well capitalized. So the tension exists because of a lack of access to opportunities, lack of access to market, and the biggest thing, the financial exclusion in the space for Black entrepreneurs.
What then is a sustainable solution that works for both the communities and the shop owners?
This Spaza debacle is emphasizing for most township communities that we can't stop, bigger, better funded, more sort of efficient businesses from coming into our space. So the only way that we can benefit and satisfy these communities is to allow them to operate their businesses, but force them into contributing towards community trust, which will then benefit those specific communities directly. This way of having community trust will then force whoever's making money in our communities to then provide a direct benefit to those people in those communities at the point of use.
Okay, that explains quite a lot for us. Vusi Vokwana, we appreciate your insights on this story. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.